Welcome everyone to Planetary Workshop. We're really excited to have you here this morning or today or what time. I'm not sure what time it is all over the world, but we are very excited. We're going to be talking about how do we obtain knowledge with Jesús Vila and Dada Rajananda today. So thank you for coming. We're going to spend the first few minutes just kind of welcoming you and setting up the workshop. And then we'll have a short Kiirtan, which is chanting meditation, followed by guided meditation. And then we'll have a presentation by Dada Rajananda, followed by a presentation by Jesús, and a little bit of Q&A, a closing, and then some announcements. So if Dada can share this forward the screen, that would be fantastic. So just to let everybody, PLT is a very inclusive community. So we're people from all over the globe, people from all different walks of life, and we're all on different parts of our path. So it's important that we make sure everyone feels welcome and use language that people understand. And so I just think this quote really captures what we're trying to accomplish here. It is our duty to accelerate the speed of human progress. Your endless efforts to broaden and smoothen the path of human movement will render our present existence and your future history inestimable. Sri Sri Andramurti. So again, everyone is welcome and we want everyone to feel welcome. So again, thank you for being here. And one more thing that's important to us is that we are a global community. We have a social platform that's online that we're growing and creating every day and developing. And we're hoping to see more and more of you on there. I know a lot of you guys are a part of the global community. And after this workshop, we'll have homework for you guys to get active on the global community and continue the discussion. So please, if you haven't checked it out, please do. It's a great interface to connect, to grow together, to learn from each other. And we're really excited about it. So thank you. And now, if you can, today we'll be using menti.com and we'll be using it interactively. I know that Dada Rajananda will be using it for his presentation. So if you can take a minute to log in, I believe Ashita put the link in the chat box. And I would love to see where we are all over the world right now. To see, I know that we're global. So we still have a lot of people still joining at the moment. I know I'm in Hawaii. We have Ashita in Brazil. We have Jesus, and I believe in Peru. We've got Dada Rajananda in New York. We've got Sneha in New York. So I know we're all coming from different places of the world. So we'd love to see. I know we have a lot of friends here from Vietnam. We like to fill up the map with all those little blue dots would be fantastic. Give everybody a second. And again, we'll be using menti.com throughout the presentation, throughout the workshop. And we have Chandrika from Colombia. Welcome, Chandrika. And if I meant to also, if you need interpretation, we have Sabod doing in Vietnamese, and we have Devesh in Spanish. So please use them. They're wonderful resources here. We're so thankful that they join us. We have Prakash from the United States, Massachusetts. Welcome, Prakash. It's fantastic. All right, so we want to keep filling this map up as we go on. And thank you again for being here. I know that you guys are going to enjoy this workshop. I've done workshops with Jesus in the past, and he's amazing. So we'll move on to the next part, which is going to be our Kiirtan, our chanting meditation, followed by a little bit of guided meditation. So enjoy.
I'm going to sing this mantra, Baba Nam Kevalam. Many of you are familiar with this, but perhaps not all of you. And it means only the feeling of limitless love. So you can just sit straight and close your eyes, and my friend here is going to accompany me. I think you've all probably got your microphones off by default, which is good because I love singing with people, but over the internet it doesn't work. So you're welcome to sing, but keep your mics off, please. And yeah, just sit straight and close your eyes, and we're just going to have a very short chanting and then silent meditation. Keep your eyes closed. Sit straight and breathe through your nose if you can comfortably. And let the mantra Baba Nam Kevalam continue in your mind with the music. And just focus on the idea behind that, this feeling of limitless love. And connect to the source of love within you. And we'll meditate on that silently for just a couple of minutes. Kevalam, Baba Nam, Kevalam, Baba Nam, Kevalam, Baba Nam, Kevalam. Just take a deep breath. And you breathe out and relax, and you can open your eyes.
Welcome to this workshop. I am very happy to be with all of you from different parts of the world in this virtual space. And we'll be talking today about thinking. Developing critical thinking is one of our programs at the Planetary Leadership Training. So we'll be talking about it today. The title of the workshop, you know, it's how do we obtain knowledge? But in reality, what we want you to get from it is critical thinking. It's a experimental or experiential learning. You experience it and learn. I will start with a quote on, it's on knowledge, but actually it goes like this. The greatest obstacle in the collective progress of the human race is the ignorance of the individual mind, by Prabhat Sarkar. That's one of the main problems of humanity today, is lack of knowledge or ignorance. And that's why we are talking about it today. So why critical thinking is important? I'm not going to answer exactly this question now, but I'm using this system called Mentimeter, and I'm going to put a link there in your chat window that you can click and interact with me. And I'm going to put you some questions. I want to see if you agree. So there are 5 statements there on the screen. And you have in your Mentimeter, if you click on those links that also Ishita shared with you on the chat, or if you use the menti.com website and put that code, you will be able to see these 5 statements, and there is a sliding bar. So if you agree with the statement, you move it all the way to the right. And if you don't agree, if you strongly disagree, you leave it in the left side. So just use that link, which is in the chat, click on it, and you go immediately to that page. And then you can give your input. So there are 5 statements. I'm going to read them so the translators can translate it. The top one, Americans should not have withdrawn from Afghanistan. That number 2, everyone should take the COVID vaccine. Number 3, the government should institute a meditation mandate. It means everybody has to do meditation. Number 4, there should be a ban on fossil fuels. It means we should not use any oil, gasoline, all this. And the last one, we should not invest in going to space when there are still hungry people in the planet. So these are the 5 statements which you can vote, or you can say if you agree or if you disagree. And I can see that so far, 12 people have given their opinions. I will give you a few more moments. And then I will comment on it. Okay, we have 14 of you, which is a good sample. And let's see what happens here. The top one, Americans should not have withdrawn from Afghanistan. So we are quite divided on this one. Some people strongly disagree, some people strongly agree. As you can see, we are really very divided on this one. We are kind of in the middle. Then we go to the next one. Everyone should take the COVID vaccine. We are also quite divided. You see, on the 6 people strongly disagree, 7 strongly agree, and some are in the middle. So we are here 33 people, 18 of us have given the opinion, and we are very divided. And we go to the next one. The government should institute a meditation mandate, means everyone should be forced to meditate. And we also divide on this one. And as you see, 6 people disagree here on the left, and 4 strongly agree. We also divided on that. We are just a small sample of people. And then we go to the next one. There should be a ban on fossil fuels. And that one, we almost are mostly in agreement here, you see. It's 4.3, so we almost all agree with that. And the last one, we should not invest in going to space when there are still hungry people in the planet. And this one, we also quite in agreement, even though we only reached 3.6 here, we are very divided. So why did I put these questions there? It's just an example of how we are in the planet today. There are issues and we have opinions, and some people have one opinion, some people have another opinion, and we are very divided. So how to proceed? How can we make a decision? So that's where critical thinking enters. And I think Jesus will talk a little bit about that. How can we base our decisions on not just opinion, but something more? Okay, so this is an open question. So I put here, in your opinion, what a critical thinker is? Somebody who thinks critically. Who is that person? How is that person? You can write down what you think. Like when you hear this word, am I a critical thinker? So what are my characteristics? how am I if I'm to be considered a critical thinker? I give you a few moments so some people can write and you can think about it. And it is the same. You go to that to the link. Let's see if I can give you the link again. So it comes in your chat. You click there. Okay, so we are getting answers now. A critical thinker means a person who thinks critically, is well-educated, well-informed, one that analyzes. So we have 2 answers so far. Examine all sides of an issue, is open to other ideas, studies and analyzes. Benevolence is the guiding factor here. That's a good point. One who carefully gathers information, considers the needs of all involved, and makes a decision about how to move forward based on the best choice for human society and the earth. Someone who analyzes and takes time to think, rational and empathetic. As pensamento objetivo means thinks objectively. Someone that thinks about all sides before answer a question. Open mind. Point of view from higher self. We'll be able to judge things after consideration of all the views, and welfare of everyone is the priority. So this point is coming that one should look at the welfare. Okay, we do have many replies. A person who constantly refines their thinking, aims for the best interpretation based on the information, someone who evaluates their values, who can break ideas into its parts, interesting, and come up with a better understanding. Yeah, I think your answers are quite good. Being clear about my values and thinking deeply about what the well-being of all beings means, and uses rationality and compassion to guide one's analysis. Good. And we have one in Vietnamese, which if someone can put the translation in the chat, I can read. And a person's ability to discriminate between the information they are given. All right, that's fine here. And I will just put a definition which you can get from web sources. So critical thinkers, they are curious and reflective, seek knowledge, clarification, new solutions, ask questions. So I think you already answered all these points, you know. They evaluate statements and arguments, are willing to examine our own beliefs, distinguish between facts and opinions, can admit that I don't know, and very important, open to change mind. So with that, I want to introduce the main presentation today with Jesus. And the title is How to Obtain Knowledge. Jesus, he studied philosophy and currently teaches philosophy at the Católica University in Peru. He is also helping Amort to develop a project on critical thinking for children, which is called Rurapuk, and that's in Peru, Lima. So I pass the presentation now to Jesus. and hope you enjoy it.
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to have all of you here. Thanks, Zara, for the presentation. So I'm gonna go directly to the subject then. So as Zara has already presented, I'm gonna try to explore with all of you the question in respect to how we obtain knowledge. So how do we obtain knowledge? First of all, I would like to hear your opinions. Of course, this question assumes that somehow we dwell in the comprehension or understanding of what knowledge is, which is true. We all somehow understand in a way what knowledge is. So how do we obtain knowledge? By reading books, by coming to workshops from like this, by talking to our dadas, didis, by thinking.
So I think they can share on the chat window, or they can talk.
Yes, yes, you can share with us on the chat, or you can also just open your mic and we can hear you. All right, I guess like we need to warm up a little bit. Learning from an experienced mentor. Okay, learning from an experienced mentor. Right, that's an interesting one. Subjective approach, objective adjustment. That is how. Reading and discussing with others, also watching what goes on around. Okay. All right, so let's start with the first one. The first one says learning from an experienced mentor, right? This means that we somehow trust in the source of this person. We somehow trust in the way in which this person perceives and thinks about the world, right? So there is an aspect of trust here, right? Then someone said subjective approach and objective adjustment. So usually there is this common belief that when we reach what is knowledge, we reach what we call truth. And when we reach truth, we tend to think that we have to create a representation of something that corresponds to reality, right? Which is an interesting idea, and it's a really old idea. And we will discuss a little bit about it in a few. Reading and discussing with others. Yes, we can also somehow perceive some sort of trust in this aspect. Like if we read something that we consider is valuable, we put our trust there, and this is the way in which somehow we believe we can obtain knowledge, also through talking with the others and watching what goes on around. Yeah, trying to perceive what is going around. Okay. Listening to a wide diversity from around the world of people who are engaged in serving others, fighting for justice, and demonstrate compassion, inclusivity, and open-hearted. Listening. Yes, this is an interesting point. Aristotle used to say that, besides observation, listening is the second most important source through which we can obtain knowledge. Okay, so let's go then a little bit more with the presentation. So usually, it's interesting that I haven't read this from any of your comments, which is okay, but usually when people think about knowledge and how we can obtain knowledge, people think about facts. People think that we need to have facts in order to create knowledge, in order to build our knowledge. So I want to talk about an example here. I want to talk about fire. if we have fire in front of us, we can take notice of the fact that fire is hot. We perceive that fire is hot. So would you say then that this is a fact? If we would have in front of us some fire, we can perceive that, of course, that fire is hot. Would that be a fact or not?
It is an important fact, but it's relative, because it's small fire, big fire, forest fire. What's burning? Is it metal that's burning and so hot, or is it simply, a piece of paper, or is it consuming something we want to be burning, or is it burning something that we're really unhappy about because the fact is such a very small part of the essence of what that fire is, the context within which it. So we perceive. So there's a sensation. We perceive that it's warmth, but if it was so hot that we would have to run away, it's the same perception of warmth, but it has a greater meaning. It means we have to take action. Or we may say, oh, just enjoy it because it's keeping us warm and happy, and we're in company of others. So the context of a fact is as probably even more important than the actual substance of it, in the narrowest sense of its.
Okay. Yes. So so as we have said, yeah, Prakash has just said that context is important, right? That yeah, it's a fact that fire is hot, but the context is important to understand some relative aspect of it. And someone also said on the chat that it's a fact for whom feels it. So if fire is hot, this is a fact for someone who can feels that hotness, we would say, right? But let us try to play a little bit with this example. Let us say, for instance, that I go through a car accident and somehow I lose the sensitivity of my hands and of all my arms. So if someone would put fire in a near position, near to my hands or arms, do you think that I would be able to perceive the hotness of the fire? No. Okay. All right. So if that person says that, let us assume that that person just wants to play around with us. In this case, it would be me, right? And I would say, no, fire is not hot. And you would ask me, why not? And I would say, well, it's not hot because I cannot perceive it as hot. I mean, someone has put fire near to my hands and I cannot perceive the hotness of fire. So what would you say about this case? Like, would this mean then that fire is hot or not? What would happen? Let us assume that a lot of people in a community, like, let us say that all the people of a particular community loses all of a sudden the sensitivity that they have in their hands. And every time that someone puts some fire next to their hands, they cannot perceive the hotness of the fire. Would we say then that fire is hot or not? The fire will continuing hot, okay? Fire burns, all right? Okay. All right, so we would say that it would still be a fact that fire is hot, although this whole community cannot perceive the hotness of fire, right? All right. There is an interesting statement here. The fact that one doesn't feel it doesn't mean fire has no certain temperature. All right. All right. So based on what we are talking then, do facts exist independently from human beings? Do facts exist independently from human beings or not? Yes. Yes. All right. Okay. So does anyone here know a little bit about theory of relativity? Do we know about how space and time works according to Einstein or according to quantum physics? What does current physics say, for instance, about space and time? Do they actually exist? Does anyone here know a little bit about it? Okay, let me help you a little bit. So science has had like a long history. Science has had like a long history of providing with a lot of theories about how things work, right? They have tried to provide a lot of sort of explanations about what we perceive to be real. But there has been a constant aspect in science throughout all its development, which is that they have constantly told us that, or they are constantly telling us that what we perceive is actually not how reality in fact looks like. So for instance, when we say that fire is hot or something like that, they would explain fire in terms of particles or maybe waves of energy, etc., etc. For some entities, fire is hot, but not for everything. It is relative to whom perceives it. That's an interesting statement, which actually helps me to get to the point that I was trying to get, which is like what we perceive, according to science, according to current science, everything that we perceive, even space and time, depends a lot on some, we could say, constructions or structures that enable our perception. In other words, or in more simple words, we all have some filters for perception. It is through these filters of perception that we perceive the world. So in other words, if all perceptual beings would disappear from all the universe, okay, all perceptual beings, let's just play with this thought experiment. This means there wouldn't be any fish, there wouldn't be any dogs, cats, human beings, nothing, or plants. If there wouldn't be any sentient beings or perceptual beings, that means beings that can perceive, do you think that fire would be hot? According to science, it wouldn't have a meaning. It would keep its properties, but we couldn't perceive them. Right. That's an interesting one. Fire, according to science, has certain properties, but hotness, is hotness is a property from fire, or is a property from fire insofar that a human being or another sentient being can perceive it? Yes, Stu? All right. So temperature is a property of matter. That's true. It's true. But is temperature the same as hotness, for instance? Are certain grades of temperature equivalent to hotness? Or is hotness produce when a sentient being interacts with some properties of what we call fire. The heat is in relation to anything that interacts with it. True, true. The hotness or the heat that we perceive when we interact with fire, according to science, is not exactly like a property from fire, but is what is produced through the interaction with something other that is not fire, in this case, a perceptual being, right? So if that's the case, once again, true, it could melt a rock. Yes, it would still have some innate properties, but would we say that the rock is perceiving the heat? The sole thing that we could say is that fire would be, for instance, melting a rock, right? Like in this case, like we can perceive some process or some phenomenon, but once again, could we say that heat is a property from fire? Or once again, yes? So the thing is, like, according to science, if there wouldn't be any sentient beings, science says that fire, even a tree, could be actually just a conglomerate of energy, right? Or maybe some particles arranged in a certain manner. So that means that when we touch, for instance, a tree, when we hear the leaves of the tree making some noise because of the movement of the wind, all of these things that we can perceive, even the fact that we can perceive the tree in a certain period of time or in a certain framework of a space, according to science, all of this is relative to the perceptual being. But possibly speaking, according to science, the thing in itself, in this case, the tree, is something other than what we are perceiving. Solo cuando hay un perceptor. So someone is saying here that the tree would somehow just be constituted in a way just when someone is being able to perceive it. So maybe at this point, some of you are thinking, what is this guy talking about? Is he trying to say that actually when we see a tree, the tree, its existence depends upon our perception? Well, not exactly, but we will move a little bit and see what that means. So let's continue. So facts, we're talking about facts. We have so far said that fact somehow depends on perception, right? So first of all, some of you were mentioning that what we perceive, even taking into account the example that I was given, depends somehow on biological structures, right? Somehow facts depend on biological structures. For instance, if I suffer some problems in respect to the sensitivity of my hands, my perceptions of what a fact is can change, right? And also there are some cultural structures that change and shape the way we perceive things. Actually, as maybe some of you might know, there are plenty of studies in anthropology that have proven in many ways that the kind of language that we have, the kind of structures of the language that we speak as our mother language can actually influence the kind of tones and nuances in colors that we can perceive. So once again, and if we want to put another example in respect to biological structures, I love sharks. I always like to read about sharks. And I think it's quite interesting, for instance, how the great white shark can perceive the presence of other entities in the water that are really miles away, right? We don't have that possibility. So let us imagine that we would be able to have the chance, in a special word, to talk with a shark. And we would be talking with the shark, and the shark would tell us, it's a fact that there is a whale in that direction, a particular point. And we would be like, no, that's not true, because we can actually not perceive it. Non-human being can perceive that. What could the shark say? Well, I mean, the fact that, as some of you have already said, the fact that human beings cannot perceive that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It's a fact for sharks, maybe the shark could say, right? So what I'm trying to get to is that, once again, facts, or what we call facts, are to a major extent shaped and built upon cultural structures and biological structures. Even the taste of something, as Dada has already said, I live in Peru, and as maybe some of you might know, in Peru, there is a lot of culture in respect to food. There is a lot of appreciation for food. So some Peruvians sometimes get offended when someone says that they don't like certain kind of food that Peruvians think is like marvelous, And of course, the taste that we can perceive from certain food also depends on the cultural aspects that we have been exposed to throughout all our development, right? Or our lives. So once again, what we perceive as facts depend on cultural structures and biological structures. Okay. So then we come to the question, why is fire hot? Aristotle, who somehow has shaped to a major extent the way in which we think about things in general, even this idea that facts are somehow obtained through some adjustment between reality and what we think, actually comes from Aristotle. So he used to say that the difference between someone that has knowledge, between someone that doesn't have knowledge, is based on the possibility of responding to the question of why something is in a particular way. Right. So because its temperature is different than mine. Why is fire hot? Okay, that's a possible answer. Because its temperature is different than mine. Okay. Why else do we think that fire is hot? And if you can see on the screen, I have put there fact, like in a circle, and there's like an envelope around the circle of fact, which is knowledge. So let us talk, for instance, about gravity. Does gravity exist? What would we say? Does gravity exist or not? It does. So how do we know that gravity exists? Yes. Does anyone want to try it out? Because of my experience of that, all right. Does anyone know what's one of the main differences between the theory proposed by Einstein and the theory proposed by Newton? Someone says we perceive it, but even if we didn't, it would still exist. We feel its effects by believing in theory and experiment. No. Okay. All right. We feel its effects. That's true. We can perceive the effects of gravity. But you know, for instance, Einstein said that space and time are relative, whereas for Newton, space and time are things that are continuous. They cannot change at all. So we could ask ourselves, like, who is right? Is Einstein right or is Newton right? Because their theories are quite different based on these two factors that I have just mentioned. Both are right. All right. The thing is, like, at least what scientists say in respect to this matter is that there is an interesting thing about science is we tend to receive this information in school that gravity, for instance, is a fact. But when we are told that gravity is a fact, we are told that gravity is a fact as if it were a dogma, right? Does anyone know what a dogma is? Dogma. Well, so dogma is essentially something that we're expected to believe in and that cannot be put into question in the strict sense. So usually we're told, yeah, we believe to be absolute truth. That's true. So dogmas are expected to be considered as truth, and we're also expected not to question them because they are supposedly evident. Okay, so the thing is, like, as I'm saying, according to scientists and philosophy of science, the interesting thing is, like, actually gravity is an explanation about what we perceive, about the experiences that we have. So for instance, if as we know that the old example from Newton, if we leave an apple, like I let an apple in the air, the apple would fall, right? And this experience that we have is given an explanation through the theory of gravity. Or it can also be given a different explanation through the theory of Einstein, right? So what I'm trying to get to with this is, like, actually theories are not facts in the sense that they are not things that we can immediately perceive. They are explanations that can give some meaning to what we perceive. If we go back to maybe the 6th century before Christ, in ancient Greece, for instance, maybe when some Greeks would see some thunderstorms or like some raining, they could think that maybe some gods were mad or angry or something like that, right? And these were facts for them. And the reason why these were facts for them is because they had certain knowledge or certain ideas that gave some meaning to their perceptions. So the same here. Okay, so this means that the reasons that we can give in respect to why fire is hot depend to a major extent on what we consider to be our knowledge. Okay, so then we're getting already a little bit more close to the answer of the question. Then, how do we obtain knowledge, or how is knowledge produced? I have put something here. The main thing about how knowledge is produced is through thinking. And this is something that sometimes tends to be overlooked or just not given real attention. Yes, at some time, a fact used to be that Earth was flat. That's true, at some point in time. So this is also a good example. What we perceive as facts depend to a major extent to what we understand by knowledge. So we have here these graphics, right? So thinking enables knowledge. How did Einstein or Newton develop the theories that they developed, like the theory of gravity, theory of relativity? Through thinking, right? And the way in which they nurtured their thinking was through reading, dialogue, and experience. However, like nowadays, there is a common belief that if we want to obtain knowledge, we need to go and pick up a book, right? And get a book. I mean, so we could say that nowadays there's like more emphasis on reading, right? What can we say, for instance, about reading? Is reading the same as thinking? What would you say? No. I have met people that, for instance, when they want to understand a particular social phenomenon, you know, they go and read books, and that's actually good. But what would we say is the difference between reading and thinking? Maybe the writer was thinking when they wrote, but maybe not. What would we say? Let us talk about a hypothetical subject, all right? Thinking is interpreting, all right? Reading is analyzing. So cannot we analyze through thinking? So is thinking not analyzing? Is reading analyzing, but thinking is different then? Structure versus unstructured, okay? So let us talk about a hypothetical being. Let us call this being Pip. So Pip was thinking about some problem that he had with his friends in respect to an ethical dilemma. And because he wanted to know exactly what to do or what was the best approach to have in this particular dilemma, he decided to read a book. And so he obtained some interesting ideas in this book. And the next thing that he did is to apply exactly what they explain in this book. This is what Pip did. And then after a week, he met with another friend, and his friend started questioning all the ideas that Pip has obtained in this book. And Pip realized that the ideas were not so accurate as he thought they were before. He actually found out that these ideas were not so good. So what do we think about Pip in this example? Like, was Pip actually thinking when he was reading? Did he have the right approach to this ethical dilemma that he was having? As I'm saying, he read something in the book, he got really happy and excited, and then he said, okay, let's just apply what I have learned. There is something important that in the schools right now is being talked about and discussed a lot, which is the difference between rote learning and meaningful learning. Maybe many of you or some of you have heard about it. So the thing is that, for instance, in the teaching of math, some people say, you know, we shouldn't teach kids just to memorize certain formulas and then to apply them in experience, you know, or in certain problems. Because if we do so, we are not teaching them how to think. It is better that they can understand the structures and the reasons why we think these formulas are good, right? Inquiry-based learning supersedes rote. Yes, that's true. So the thing is, like, wouldn't we say that Pip actually did he applied this same formula as we're putting in this math example. He learned some formulas from a book, right? And then he just applied them. Is that actually a reasonable approach? It can be dangerous, at least, we can admit. Because, yeah, if the author of this book was right, then Pip is in a good place. But if Pip read, but if Pip could be able to question what he read, maybe he could have a much better approach. Yeah, so reading has to do with information. That's true. Yes, a lot of public education is meant to create non-thinkers, great employees. That's also true. So the thing is then, like, how can we actually have a different approach, for instance, in respect to reading? Because as we're saying, nowadays, there is also a great tendency to use books as, in the example of math, we are giving formulas. We take these formulas to just apply them on reality, right? There is a philosopher, Heidegger, who used to say that we also need to ask ourselves, what is reading? If we don't ask ourselves what is reading, he said, like, we cannot know for sure that we are actually reading. What does it mean to read? Does it mean to just get information and then apply it? That's why I have tried to put here thinking. Thinking is, in the end, according to experts in science, in philosophy, what actually enables knowledge, not the mere acquisition of information or the mere talk or experience, because we can also go through different experiences and yet not be able to understand the meaning of them, right? This is, for instance, what happens when someone goes to therapy and they find out like that actually they have had certain pattern of behavior through all of these experiences of suffering that he or she has had, right? And yet he or she was not able to understand the meaning of these experiences. Why? Because she or he was not being able to think in a particular way, right? So we're about to finish. This is like a summary of what we have been talking. Thinking actually can provide a special meaning to facts. If we apply our thinking to facts, or what we call facts, or to our perceptions, we can obtain knowledge. And this knowledge can shape or reshape or influence our thinking. And there is like a sort of loop, right? This is a continuous thing. So, well, this is just a small extraction of what we are trying to do here in these kind of workshops. I hope that you have enjoyed and that you have been given some piece of information so you can stimulate also your thinking. Thank you. Yes, reading could also lead us to thinking, but also can lead us to dogma. Same with a mentor. Yes. Yes, thank you all. So I think that
we have some time for question and answers.
Okay.
So they can write their questions. I'm going to on the Mentimeter, or they can also write on the chat. I'm going to put the Mentimeter up there. So they could go to that same link and write their questions, or they could write on the chat. And if it's a short question, they can also open the mic and ask it.
Yes. Yes, any questions or final comments? Yes, I would like to comment on here. We had reading could lead us to thinking, but also can lead us into dogma. Same with a mentor. We are to validate the content. Yes. Yeah. So this is something important. We're actually also planning to have in the near future possibly another workshop where we can talk about the difference between information and knowledge. Because we tend to sometimes we can overlook the difference between also data, information, and knowledge. How can we differentiate between all of these? What is that neo-humanist approach to reaching knowledge? Identidades sin perceptor. Well, so the approach to knowledge, Baba actually suggests in many of his educational books that it's important to read. It's important to read, he says, because through reading, we can actually understand the new important interpretations that the important minds of our time, we can say, are providing respect to all sorts of phenomena. So that said, once again, although it is important to read, Baba also stresses the importance of analyzing and synthesizing information. That is, if we don't analyze or we don't question what we read, we can end up looking as pip, right? As I have said, like we read a book, like I know here in Peru, like I have a friend that he told me, you know, he bought this book that was trying or was supposed to teach him how to think positively. And then he realized that he was just trying to apply formulas in his life. And in the end, they didn't work that well, right? So what I'm trying to say with this is like formulas are not bad in itself. We can find formulas not only in math, but also in all sorts of other areas. But the problem is like if we don't have a critical approach to what we read, if we don't have a critical approach to the formulas that we are given by certain experts or whatever, we might end up forcing our own experiences into some conceptual structures that don't fit. And in the end, we might actually harm ourselves or others, right? So that would be my answer. Identidades sin perceptor. Well, that's actually an interesting question. According to science, in the end of the day, we don't know for sure if there is such. All we can know, this is also an interesting thing. Many people tend to believe that science is focused or has the goal of providing us with truths. But the fact is that actually science doesn't try to provide us with truths, but actually science has as its goal the development of conceptual structures that can guarantee certain prescriptions or certain, we would say, certain prescriptions based on certain descriptions. So what I'm trying to say is like the goal of science is to provide better interpretations of the phenomena with which we interact on a daily basis or in general. It may be great not to be dogmatic on current theories and facts at this moment. Eventually, our concepts at this time will be considered obsolete. Definitely. It is quite important to not have a dogmatic approach, and it's actually a challenge, right? Because we would need to actually ask ourselves if it's true many things that we tend to consider as truth. Kant, for instance, has this quite interesting small reading, which is called What is Enlightening? And what he says in this small text is that the problem with human beings is not that they don't have real understanding. The problem with human beings is that they are lazy and are cowards to start thinking. In other words, he says that sometimes we just don't have the courage. We don't want to have the courage to think by ourselves, right? So there is also like an emotional aspect, an ethical aspect in respect to knowledge, we would say. If we are not ethical, in this case, if we don't have the courage to think by ourselves, to think and just question what others tell us, we are, according to Kant, we are actually not thinking for real. We're just following what other people tell us that is the truth. Neo-humanism is a holistic philosophical theory given by Prabhat Ranjan Sarkar, that redefines humanity and humanism, and in which universalism plays a central role. Yes, that is true. I've read particularly the books that are concerned with education, and as I have been saying, according to Baba, education should try to focus on the acquisition of more knowledge that goes also through analysis and synthesis. So this goes back to the concept of thinking, which is an interesting topic also. What is thinking, right? We tend to talk a lot about thinking, but it's kind of like, as Saint Augustine once said in respect to time, he says, we all the time talk about time, but whenever anyone asks us what time is, we just forget about it. And we realize that we don't really know what time is. And the same with thinking. How can we talk about critical thinking if we actually don't even have the slightest idea about thinking, right? So what is thinking? This is also an interesting question that we can also discuss in another workshop. So I don't know, how are we going with time, Tara?
We still have a few minutes. You can take one more of the questions.
Okay, so we have also some other questions here. So critical reading will help us to be more accurate, rich in knowledge by critical thinking. Yes. Yes. Gracias. Muy buena presentación. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Can you say something about disinformation? Yes. So the thing about disinformation, this is interesting, because we could say that information using theory of memes, which is also quite interesting. We have also made some workshops about memes, but so according to the theory of memes, information can be considered as some clusters of meaning, you know? So the problem is that sometimes some clusters of meaning can be devised purposely to actually lead us to a false perception, or to try to reshape what we perceive as facts. And this, of course, is problematic if these clusters of meaning try to deny our perceptions. So yeah, that we will need to touch more on this topic on another workshop. I think, unfortunately, we're running out of time. So yeah, thank you very much, and hope to see you on another occasion.
Yes, we will have more workshops on the topic. Keep tuned and connected to the community. You'll hear about it. Now, we are coming to the conclusion of today's workshop. We still have a few minutes. We want to do one activity with you, and we call this activity a waterfall. So let me explain. Basically, we want you to say in 1 to 5 words how you feel or something that you got from this workshop, but we want you to put in the chat, but not yet. So we want everybody first to write. So you write in the chat and don't send, just keep it there. So you write in 1 to 5 words how you feel now about the workshop, or something you learned in the workshop, something you want to share with us. Okay, you have either in 1 word or 5 words. So write it down there in the chat, and make sure you are sending to everyone in the meeting, but don't send yet. And then you hold it, and I'm going to give you the sign. So first, let me write something also. Okay, so I'm going to tell 1, 2, 3 and send. Okay, so everybody ready? 1, 2, 3, send. All right. So it falls just like a waterfall. Now let's see. Of course, I was quicker than you. And oh no, some people were quicker here. Great workshops. Oh, no, that one. I wrote very enlightening, stimulated, want to know more, great, amazed, think more when reading, yes, valuable, thought-provoking ideas. Found a bug on Zoom. Okay, Zoom is full of bugs. Enlightened, grateful, empowered, happy. Okay, fantastic. Un faro entre la tormenta de dogmas. It means like a light in the storm of dogmas. I want to obtain more knowledge. Questioning can be transformative. And we have here in Vietnamese, which I need to translate. Let me see if I can translate this one. That will be the last one we have here. And the Vietnamese means excellent. Okay, that's a good last one. So, yes. So that was the waterfall. And now we have something else, which let me show in my screen. It's a homework. Because, yes, we learned here, we heard, but we have to keep applying it. We are inviting you to go to our online community. We'll get the link there in the chat. And let's continue this discussion. We'll have Jesus there also. He can answer some questions, give some input. And continue the discussion that we started here. And the idea that we have is how we can apply this knowledge in our life, because that's what makes the difference when we learn something and we can apply. If we learn a lot, but we don't apply, we have it there in some closet, it doesn't have use. So knowledge has to be applied. Okay, so that is what I had. And I want to invite you to our next workshop. And I will tell something, and maybe Krishna Prema can add something to it. I will be giving this next workshop. It's on yoga for health. I will focus more on the yoga postures and a few more extra things. The idea is that we can heal our body and our mind through different medicines that we take in or that we use outside, but we can also do it through the practice of yoga exercises in a regular way. And that will be next week at the same time. And if Krishna Prem, you want to add something to that, or we are good?
Yes, Dada, thank you. As Dada said, we're going to have this next workshop next Sunday. So we hope you'll join us. I think it'll be very valuable as we are trying to bring forth change into our lives and change into our communities and change into our world. So thank you, Dada. And as we start to close today, it's early morning for me here, obviously. I want to thank Jesus. I want to thank Dada for being here and presenting. It was a fantastic workshop. I know I enjoyed it. I want to thank all of you for attending. I want to thank Sneha for hosting, Ashita for all her hard work, and then also the Ruapak team. They helped with us with this presentation. So they have a great program in Peru that we really are happy that they have joined with us. And if you could push the screen over, Dada, that would be fantastic. And also, I cannot forget our volunteer interpreters. So we have Sabod here, and often we have another interpreter, Lolita. We have Devesh, and they are true volunteers. They do this day in, day out all the time for us. So please visit our donor box. It's a campaign that we started because we are trying to offer as much content, and the community is completely free, but it would be wonderful in the future to be able to supplement, especially our interpreters and our host and all the volunteers that make this happen. So if you can, please visit donorbox.org, Planetary Leadership Training. That would be wonderful. And the biggest thing too, we hope to see you in the community. We'll post the homework question right away. And like I said, it's a great place to continue the discussion. And I hope that Jesus will join us there, because I think we'd all like to pick his mind a little more. So again, we really appreciate you guys being here today, and we hope to see you. And we also, this will be posted on our YouTube channel, and we'll also post this whole workshop presentation in the community. And we hope to see you in the community. We hope to see you at Planetary Meditation next Saturday, and definitely next Sunday for our next workshop. So enjoy your rest of your day or evening. And thanks again for being here.
And you have a poll there to give your...
Yes, yes, thank you, Dada. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So we appreciate the feedback so we can think about how to improve. Okay, I think that's it for today. Thank you, everybody.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Jesus, so much for your insights. It's really enlightening.
Yeah, thank you all too.
Okay.